Hey, what's going on, everyone? Glad to see you out on the interwebs and such. Welcome to Extreme Improv's YouTube channel, and welcome to a panel where we're going to talk about using improv in your careers. I think that this is a really great opportunity to learn about how to be an advocate for improvisational creativity, and that's a big thing that we can share and spread, because when you're doing improv, you really can make something out of nothing. So we have a couple of panelists here who will introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about themselves and their experience with improv. And then we'll ask some questions and hopefully get a little bit of insight from how they integrate improv into their careers. So we'll start off with Meredith. Meredith, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us like a little bit of your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Meredith, and I am a high school teacher in New Hampshire, and I've been doing improv since I think 2013, 16. There we go. Let's see if I could get the numbers correct. So for the better part of like 6 years or so, and not only performing improv, but I've also been teaching improv, not only with the group that I was a part of, Bring Your Own Improv in Rhode Island, but I also brought it to my classrooms, to my drama kids, and beyond. Oh, and I teach high school special ed. I forgot about that part. So special ed is like a huge part of improv all the time.
Thanks for that, Meredith. And then we'll pass it on to Alex, if you want to talk a little bit about what you do and how you integrate improv into that.
Sure. Hi, Meredith, by the way. It's good to see you again. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Mann. I am a 26-year member of law enforcement working inside the correctional system in the state of Massachusetts. And I've been doing improv for almost 6 years now. I've also been a member of Bring Your Own Improv. I've performed all over Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I was fortunate enough to open up my own venue just pre-COVID, and unfortunately, I'm one of the businesses that did not survive. But I was lucky enough to become a member of a house team over at the Providence Improv Guild. So improv is a huge part of what has become my identity as I get older.
Thanks, Alex. That was awesome. So we have like two different kinds of professions, but it kind of also works in the human services. We're going to discuss then a question first. I'd like to bring up is the first question that I have is, so we'll start off with Alex and then Meredith, and then we'll go Meredith and Alex, and then Alex and Meredith, so you kind of have time to think about the question while you're listening to the other person and switch it up. So Alex, we'll start off with you, but the first question is, was there ever a moment in your career where it just clicked, where you were doing your job and you thought just, wow, I'm actually doing improv at this moment in my job? What did it feel like?
For me, it was the reverse. I had, I think it was around the 20-year mark, I started doing improv, working inside the sheriff's department. And it was very early on in my first level 1 class where the two instructors kind of grabbed me and went, "So have you taken improv classes before?" And for me, my approach had always been to approach more dangerous situations with a little bit of humor and how to diffuse it. So my attitude has always been, if I can make a 300-pound murderer laugh, he's really not going to want to hurt me. And then we can kind of have a connection. It's humor diffused is the problem. So after that, once I started taking improv classes and performing, I realized the skill set of the active listener inside the prison system of evaluating people's what they're giving you, their facial expressions, their body language, their tone. Does all this match up? Really played very well into the improv community for me.
It's really interesting about improv is because improv does focus a lot around active listening, and you're it's a give and take in some ways, but you're practicing that bond building by just listening. Meredith, do you want to? Would you like me to repeat the question?
No. Alex, you and we're like two peas in a pod because I don't have to deal with 300-pound murderers, fortunately. I just have to deal with angry 17-year-olds, which I don't know which one can be more tough sometimes. I don't know. But it's always about reading the situation and creating that bond with my students. And it's all about that yes and approach, especially in special ed, where there is going to be a moment in time where you're going to have a student who might be struggling with a certain concept. And then that's when you have to say yes and flip some things on its head and turn the situation around to something that can be positive. So that way, that learning experience, which can be pretty scary sometimes, especially for children who have been struggling essentially their entire academic careers, turn around and say, okay, let's focus on a positive mindset. Let's try this again. And it's looking at the material, like I said, and then bringing in props, looking at it in a different way. We still don't understand. That's okay. We'll look at it a different way. One thing that was kind of like my aha moment, that improv is pretty well integrated in education. It wasn't actually my story, so I'm starting to steal my sister's. I come from a family of educators. My sister was actually in one of her final interviews for the job that she later got, and she was going to teach this lesson to some students. It was going to be math, and it was going to understand quantity and summing numbers up to 10. And the projector that she lined up to have like this huge lesson plan, it didn't work. And she had these Cuisenaire rods, which are like these rods that demonstrate, quantities. You have a rod with a digit of 1, 2, 3, and they're different lengths. And she was like, okay. And then she just dumped all the Cuisenaire rods out on the desks. And she's telling me the story, and I was like, oh, yeah, I recognize that. That's pretty cool. All right. And then that was like my way of starting to jump into education myself.
Wow, that's so like things change and you just yes and what you can with it,
Mm-hmm.
Like,
can I add one thing to the yes and, Tim?
Yeah.
So yes and is like the cornerstone for improv. Yeah. We yes and it, and as you get further along, you realize you don't actually need to say the yes and. The important thing about the yes and when you're in a human service industry or just any kind of work environment doesn't necessarily mean I accept your reality. It means I understand that is your reality, and how do we move forward together? It doesn't always mean I am seeing the same argument you are, but it means I'm accepting your space to have that opinion, that belief, that vision in front of you, and still work together. And that's an empowering thing for someone hearing that they don't often get if it's a non-improviser.
I mean, that can happen in any conversation. I've been asked to fix something, but I don't take into account the other person's perspective at that moment because I'm in fixing mode. But when I can take a step back, listen to them, and understand their perspective, it helps me understand the problem more. So, that's just with interpersonal relationships.
I was going to say that's empathy written all over it. That's human condition right there, where we have, in order to really gain relationships, and we have to have empathy. We have to understand where the other person is coming from.
Yeah, that's huge. We'll move on to the next question. Meredith, this will be yours. When did you have to use improvisational techniques for a difficult or stressful moment on the job? What were the results?
Okay, so before I worked as a teacher, I was a paraeducator, And I had a student who was nonverbal. She was selectively mute. She would only speak when she really felt most comfortable. And it was one of those things where you have to create that relationship and let that bond happen naturally. You can't force that. She had such high anxiety. You can't force that kind of relationship to happen. So one thing turned into another, and we were reading Beowulf because it was a required reading for her, and she was struggling to understand what was happening because the language is pretty difficult. And that's when I went into like improv mode, because I'm like, Beowulf is exciting as a text if that's your thing, but when you're struggling to understand, it can be frustrating. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to mime this out. So I immediately just started like breaking the text down, and I literally ended up hiding under a desk to like pretend I was I can't remember the mother's name now, but the mother of the monster that Beowulf killed, and she started laughing. And in that laughter, we were able to start bonding. So very similar to Alex, where he uses humor to help create those connections. We found that connection in laughter, and with, not taking things as seriously. And that was probably one of the main reasons why I said, okay, I need to take this another step further and become a teacher, advance my careers, but also say all of these tools that I have in my toolkit are not exclusive to the stage. They can be widely used throughout everywhere, and they should be used everywhere in life. So that way we can use them to our benefit to hopefully make the situation more positive and find solutions. Wow, so I guess that was my little moment where I got one of my favorite moments where I got to use improv on the job.
Yeah, you really got to connect with someone through your performances, and that was huge because you just brought that naturally. Alex, would you like me to repeat the question, or do you remember?
No, I my short-term memory is still pretty good.
All right, mine is. It's good to see.
So for me, it's not so much a daily occurrence, but it's pretty frequent. Inside a correctional facility, we often encounter people who are either in a mental health crisis, a detox from a drug and alcohol crisis, sometimes both. Sometimes it's a situational change for them. So it happens a lot. And what tends to, and the perfect example I'll give is there was a young man who I would, without a medical diagnosis, my understanding is he probably would have been on the spectrum, and really jail is probably not the best place for him. And in the housing unit he was in, he was acting out, getting very loud, very disruptive, and that can cause a problem to the other people that are there. So the officers did the right thing. They said, okay, we've got to move. They called down the hallway officers, the zone officers, to go down and take him out. And, the protocol is they end up in a pair of handcuffs, they get escorted up, and then they're taken down to the other side of the building to be evaluated. So I happened to be the person they were going to pass him off to. And I could hear him the whole way up the hallway just yelling. And it was, obscenities and just really, it was he wasn't physically resisting, but he was verbally resisting. So as they passed him to me, I could hear him yelling, and the insults started, and he was now directing them at me. So now I'm hearing them better. And I went, you know what? My mom probably agrees with you. Every Thanksgiving, I hear the same thing. And he didn't know what to say. So then he's still kind of yelling, and I went, I can't really hear you. You're echoing off of these walls. Can you say that again? And eventually he figured out he needed to lower his volume for me to hear him better. And I could hear him the whole time. I just wanted him to stop yelling. Once we got past the yelling, and he didn't really understand why he had to be removed from the unit. And I said, well, you were yelling, right? well, yes. I said, well, nobody wants to deal with somebody yelling. So we're going to get you down there. We're going to go through this. So from the time I got him from the doorway down to the other side of the building, he had calmed down and he had become very compliant and was willing to do everything I needed him to do for us to get past this moment. And at no point did I take any of it personal. I understood this is his reality, not mine. And once I got him to realize I was willing to listen, he just needed to be quieter about it. It worked out very well. So in a lot of ways, it was a whole lot of yes and without ever saying yes and.
That sounds stressful, and thank you for being thank you for the courage of sharing that. We'll move on
Alex,
to our.
Again,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Alex, again, I think you and I have a lot more in common than because, like, there's the other side of education too, where you get the kids who are really struggling with de-escalating themselves and regulating their emotions. And there was a time where, it was right outside my classroom, there was a kid who was really struggling with finding attention that he really wanted. You could tell that he just wanted somebody to listen to him. And he was trying to instigate a physical altercation with another student. So, I had no idea what was happening at the time, so I just poked my head out. I'm like, "Hey, what's happening? What's going on?" Yelling. There's some swearing going, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, hey, this other kid that the altercation he's having with, I think you need to get back to class. Hey, what's your name?" and everything else. And we ended up having a 2 to 3 minute conversation where, he was regaling all of these offenses that apparently this kid did. He was really struggling, and then he started saying that teachers are awful, that the institution is the worst, everybody's out to get him. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, okay, well, let's break it down. Let's really focus on what's going on, why you're feeling this way. And from there, he was able to regulate himself. He was able to take a breath, which was good. And I don't think the situation of him not liking school ever changed. I think he's still pretty anti-education, anti-school, but at the very least, he's able to say, you know what, I was able to at least yell at a teacher, and I wasn't gonna be offended or be like, you need to go to the office or anything like that, because I was just like, this kid is just struggling. He just needs to go back to class eventually. And yeah, that's, I guess, the improv way of just saying, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not the star of this right now. I need to help my scene partner out. And that way they can navigate this scene. They can perform the way how they want it, their bit to go. And then we can move on and end scene.
Wow. So it seems like those transactions between two people, they're similar, but they're also much different. But it gives me hope that we can work together as a community to sort of share those improvisational techniques and help other people in their interactions. Those are awesome examples. Oh my God. Oh, all right. I got so excited I forgot who's next. We'll do Alex for the third question, and then we'll go to Meredith. Okay, the third question is, Alex, how do you see improv and improvisational creativity being used to improve outcomes in your profession?
Well, pretty simple. Law enforcement it takes a bad rap for when situations go wrong. There's no excusing when it does go wrong. I think sometimes people just don't have the skill set to have a communication that they need to sometimes, and maybe it's the wrong profession for them. But increasing that ability to listen, see what the body language is telling you, is it matching up? Look, in the end, my job is always going to have a physical, potential violent ending, right? That's the reality for me. I know this. But if I have that ability to stop somebody for half a second and distract them, with an agreement or a quick joke or something they weren't expecting. Like when somebody's insulting you and you go, yeah, my mom would agree with you. That's hard to come back from. Where does that person take that? Like, you can't go much further insulting somebody when you go, yeah, my mom agrees with you. Like, well, okay. I mean, now what?
So now you could bond with them over, parental trust. Never mind. I'll go there.
And the reality is that, and I see other officers do this all the time, they just may not have the improv training, but having that ability to kind of understand in the moment that what this person is saying and doing is not personal, it's not directed at you, it was the whole system. It was, the person who annoyed them in the supermarket the day before. There's a whole other reality going on around them that does not involve you, so you can't personalize it. So to me, I think it would be nice if people would start bringing out their cameras when an officer is actually using that skill set to de-escalate a problem, and we could have more examples of how to do this. To me, all my brothers and sisters who are in law enforcement or who have to interact with people, learning how to do that would be tremendous. It would save us so much on our own personal bodies, our own personal stress, our own mental health. And then it would probably take a lot of the problems where people physically get hurt and drop that down to something that we could all understand there was no way to avoid that it was going to go there.
I've understood that improvisational creativity can create different outcomes if you believe in the possibility of those outcomes. Meredith, would you like me to repeat the question, or are you good?
I think I'm okay. What I would like to just first and foremost just commend Alex for everything that he's doing, because he's dealing with a lot of tough situations. And the thing that I can see how improv and improvisational creativity being used to help improve education is honestly just establishing those relationships. Just keep reaching out over and over again. It's the ability to adapt and modify, which is modification is literally my job, to help modify, help change different things, or help give accommodations to students. So there are times that you have to be creative about it. On top of that, it's being able to know where you want the joke to go and try and setting up all of those different beats, if you will, so that you can hit that last button. It's planning ahead just in that moment to say, okay, you know what, this lesson is not going the way I wanted it to, so I need to change it up. I need to think on the fly here, but I know that I need to hit A, B, and C for there to be true comprehension of what I'm trying to teach. And then hopefully the button or the lesson learned will happen. And it's on top of that is also connecting with parents, is connecting with administration, is connecting with other teachers. It's this continual communication, collaboration, yes-anding, empathy, and, just knowing that you need to hit all of these different levels to get to the button for the final joke.
Wow. When I'm listening to both of you, you seem to be both in like an action mindset where you're like, okay, I'm in this scenario and I'm going to use what I'm taught to work around to get that button, to hit that joke, to get that outcome. And it refers back to a TED talk that the neuroscientist Charles Lim spoke about, was when you're improvising or you're being improvisationally creative, you're not judging yourself. You're in the creative zone. And like when you're not judging yourself, that's when you're providing yourself and the environment around you with the best solutions, because you already believe in what you're doing. You're just applying the training to it. So that's impressive.
Tim, what you were saying earlier about, to me, that seems like you have to have that moment of vulnerability. And again, that's human connection.
Yeah.
And having that moment of vulnerability, I think, helps with education, because when we all make mistakes, right? So I can't tell you how many times I misspell things on the board, and my I'm not the best calculator in all the land. So there are times when I make mistakes, and it's being vulnerable and being like, whatever. That alone, it helps out with the creative process. It helps with other people to recognize that they too can be vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, they can be creative. They can learn. They can try something new and be okay.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to, yes, I failed, and then I can move forward and learn from it. Actually, my failures are my best.
It's a requirement to fail.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a requirement to fail, because if to fail means you made the attempt.
Yeah, and that's bravery right there.
Yeah, all I'm thinking about now are all the failed jokes that I've made on stage.
Oh God, I can't think of all of them. All I can think of is the crickets that just come after the failed jokes. So that's
no. And
I've got a great.
With both of you at one point in time, and one of the things I've taken away from improv, from the people who are newer to it, and the people who are naturally gifted in leading, is that before we always would take the stage, I would look every member in the eye and with a fist pump say, "Where you go, I will follow." Meaning, whatever you say, whatever you do, whatever reality you create, I got you. It's fine. There will be no fail with me on the stage. You and I will figure this out. I don't care if the audience gets it. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, I want to thank the both of you for making this like a total success, because I'm hopeful that people who see this, if you're here at the end, you can use these examples to be an advocate for improv, and how the improvisational framework or improvisational creativity in general, whether it's improvisational dance, improvisational music, freestyle rap, all these different forms of creativity can be a benefit for your community, for your profession, for your career, for your environment. So thanks for checking us out. And I want to thank Alex and Meredith for being a part of this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, Meredith.
Thank you, Tim.
Do you guys have anything you want to plug for prosperity's sake? No? Okay.
Education.
Yay! Well, thanks for doing all you're doing, and thanks for being here and taking the time out of your day. And I want to thank David Pistansky from Extreme Improv. Let's whatever we're doing next, wish you great luck with it, and I'll see you in the next time.
Right. Bye.
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 Okay, I'll just quickly pop on the screen. Just thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Tim. That was really fascinating to watch. Audience, the championship show is going to be on in about half an hour, so make sure you go grab a drink, grab a bite to eat, and come back to youtube.com/extremeimprov for more. Ciao for